Hello everyone, my name is Maysam and in this video we are going to talk about Work Manager in Android. In previous videos we have talked about other solutions for handling background tasks in Android. We have talked about async tasks, we also have talked about services, bound and unbound services, and also we have talked about job schedulers. I will put the link for each one of those videos in case if you need to check them. But in this video, we are going to talk about the latest solution for handling background tasks, which is Work Manager. The problem that we had when we worked with Job Scheduler was that it was not backward compatible. Since API level 21 and higher, you could have used Job Scheduler, but prior to that, you didn't have that option. Work Manager has come to solve that exact problem. In fact, under the hood, Work Manager, since API level 23 and higher, uses exactly Job Scheduler. Prior to API level 23, it uses a combination of broadcast receivers and alarm manager. So by using Work Manager, you have all of the functionalities of Job Scheduler. You can define some constraints for your work. For example, if you want to schedule your work if the device is charging or not, if the device has some network connection or some other kind of constraints. In previous videos, we have seen that we have all of those options in Job Scheduler. Now we can use all of those options with Work Manager, plus we have backward compatibility up to API level 14. Okay, enough talking. Let's quickly import the dependency for Work Manager in our project. For that, I'm going to search for Work Manager dependencies. The first link from the official Android developers website is probably our needed link. And as you can see down in here, we have the dependencies. You can also see that there are multiple versions of these dependencies. We are not going to need all of them. We just need the Java version. The others are for Kotlin, RX Java 2, and also some are for testing. So let's just copy the first two, the Java dependency and also the work version. Let's copy them into our Gradle script, into build.gradle module app. Let's also delete this comment. Okay, now let's sync our project. It seems like we have added the Work Manager dependency into our project successfully. Next, we need to create a worker class. Let's quickly create that and we will talk about it. In my package, I can create a new Java class. Let's name this one sample worker. First of all, we need to extend the worker class. Let's say extend worker, the one that comes from androidx.work package. Right now you can see that we have some errors. Let's fix them. By pressing Ctrl+I, we can see that we have one mandatory method. Let's override that. And also we need to create a constructor for this class as well. By pressing Alt+Enter, we can create that constructor. Let's minimize this project pane for now. Later on, when we create our Work Manager instance, we are going to pass our work to this worker class. And to be specific, we are going to pass the work to this doWork method. Everything is going to happen inside this doWork method. Also, it's worth mentioning that this doWork method will happen inside a background thread, and we don't need to be worried about concurrency in here. So if you are going to download a file or maybe convert a file, you don't need to be worried about blocking the main thread. You can do all of your time-consuming tasks inside this doWork method. You can pass some input data to this worker class if you want. And the way you get those data in here is like this. You can say data. As you can see, we have multiple options. The one that we need is going to come from androidx.work package. Make sure to import the right one. Let's say data. Let's name it input data is equal to get input data. As simple as that, we can have access to the data that later on we are going to pass to this worker class. For example, we can pass some string or integer to this data object. And the way to get them is like this. Let's say a string, let's say name is equal to input data dot get string. The values are going to be saved inside key value pairs, so we need a key in here. For example, we can pass name. In here, I'm not going to get any string. Instead, I'm going to get an integer. The reason for that is because I'm not going to do any time-consuming task in here. For example, I'm not going to download any file. Instead, I'm going to mimic some long-running operation inside this method. To be specific, I'm going to count down from 10 to 0, and between each number, I'm going to sleep the worker thread for 1 second, just for indicating that we are inside a worker thread. Okay, let's get the integer. Let's say int number is equal to input data dot get int. For the key, I'm going to say number. It's better to pass constants for the keys, but in here, for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to hardcode the key. We also need a default value. For no reason, I'm just going to pass -1. Next, we can create a for loop in here, or even before that, let's quickly log the value of this number. Even before that, let's quickly add a log above in here by typing log t and pressing tab. Down in here, we can say log d, let's say number, and let's pass our number. After that, let's create our for loop. Let's say for int I is equal to our number. Let's say as long as I is greater than 0. After that, let's say I minus minus. And inside the for loop, I'm going to print the value of I. Let's say I was plus the value of I. And after that, let's sleep our thread. We have multiple options for that. Let's say thread.sleep. And we also need to pass some milliseconds. But in here, we are getting an error. And for this sleep method, we need to do that inside a try catch block by pressing Alt plus Enter on the error. You can see the options. Let's surround it with the try catch block. In the catch block, we are getting the interrupted exceptions. We are almost done with this do work method. Let's just talk about the return type of this method, which is a result. We have 3 options as the return of this method: result.failure, result.retry, and result.success. You can guess the meaning of each one of these. In case if the work is successful, we can safely return result.success. Let's quickly do that. Let's say result.success. But in case if something wrong happens, for example, inside this catch block, we can return result.failure. Let's say return result.failure. In case if we want to reschedule our work, we can use the other one. We can use result.retry. Let me just show that. Let's say return result.retry. I'm not going to reschedule my work in here. I just wanted to show you that. Okay, now we are done with our worker class. We can switch back to main activity, and from there we can schedule our work, or to be precise, we can enqueue our work. And the way to do that is like this. First of all, because we are going to pass some data to our worker class, we need to create that data object. The way to do that is like this. We can say data. Once again, don't forget to import the right package, which is androidx.work. Let's name it data is equal to new data.builder. This one. And after that, we can say dot put integer. For the key, I'm going to say number. And for the value, let's say 10. After that, I can simply say .build. After creating our data object, we can also create some constraints. The way to do that is like this. We can say constraints. Once again, there are multiple options. Make sure to import the one that comes from androidx.work. Let's name them constraints is equal to new constraints.builder. And in here, we can define the criteria that we want to enqueue our work. For example, we can say .set required network type. For this method, we need to pass a constant, and that comes from network type dot. You can see that we have multiple options: connected, metered, unmetered, or not roaming. For this work, I'm just going to pass connected. It means that enqueue the work no matter what the kind of network is. We have other options as well. For example, we have set required charging. We can pass true or false. We can also say that enqueue the work if the device is in idle mode. This one in here, set requires device idle. Once again, we need a boolean for this method, for this criteria, or you can check others as well. For this simple job, I'm not going to pass anything else. I'm just going to build my constraints. These two objects in here, this data and constraints, are not necessary. If you don't want to pass any data as input data to your worker class, you can just not to create this data object. Also, if you don't want to have any criteria for your work, you can simply ignore these constraints. After creating data and constraints, it's time to create your work request. In here, you have two options. You can create a one-time work request, or you can create a periodic work request. First of all, let's check the first one. Let's say one-time work request. Let's name it download request. We can create it like this. We can say new one-time work request.builder. For this builder, we need the sample worker class. Let's pass that sample worker.class. After that, we can set the data or input data for this work. We can say .set input data, this one, and we can pass our data object. We can also set the constraints for this work request as well. Let's say set constraints, and we can pass our constraints. Also in here, we have other options as well. If you want, you can set some initial delay for your work as well. For example, if you don't want to enqueue your work immediately, you may want to enqueue it 2 or 3 days later. You have that option in here. You can say .set initial delay. After that, you need to pass a time, let's say 5. And after that, you need to pass a time unit. For example, you can say time unit dot hour. I want my work to be enqueued after 5 hours. The other option that you have in here is .add tag. Later on, we will see that how these tags are going to be helpful. For these tags, you need to pass a string. For example, in here, I'm going to say download. Basically, this tag is going to be helpful when you want to know the state of your work. Later on, we will see that if you want to cancel your works, you are going to need a tag or the work ID. Okay, let's move on from here. The other option that you have in here is setting up some backoff criteria. I'm not going to do that, but just to show you, you can see that you have the option of setting some backoff criteria. After you are done with your work request, you can simply build it by saying .build. After your work request has been created, you can enqueue it. And the way you do that is like this. You can say work manager .get instance. It's a singleton class. Right now, you can see that this get instance method is deprecated. In newer versions, you need to pass a context in here, which in this case, I'm going to pass this. After that, you can say .enqueue, and you can pass your work request. In this case, I'm going to pass download request. As simple as that, you can enqueue your works. Our application is ready to test. Just before we run the application, let's review what we are going to do in here. We are passing some data to our worker class, and the data includes only one integer, a number, and the number is 10 later on inside our sample worker class. And we are creating a for loop inside a background thread. We are counting down from 10 to, let's say, 0, and between each number, we are waiting for 1 second. If everything goes well, we are returning result.success. If something wrong happens, we are returning result.failure. That's all our application is doing, and also we don't have any user interface. For that matter, when I run my application, I'm going to open the logcat. Right now, as you can see, nothing seems to be happening, and that's for 2 reasons. First of all, we have set the constraint so that our device would be in charging mode. The emulator is not in charging. If you want, you can change that. The other reason is that we have set the initial delay for this work request to 5 hours from now. So for these 2 reasons, we are not getting anything inside our logcat. In here, I'm going to comment this set constraints and also set initial delay method so that we can see that our application is working. Let's run the application once again, and this time let's check the logcat. As you can see, the do work method is happening. We are getting the value of I every second, and also we are waiting for the next number for 1 second. That seems to be perfect. Okay, now that we have seen one-time work request, let's also check periodic work request. I'm going to comment this line for now because we don't want to enqueue our work once again. And let's create a periodic work request. It's as simple as one-time work request, just we have some little minor differences. Let's say periodic work request, let's name it periodic work request is equal to new periodic work request dot builder. In here, first of all, we need to pass the worker class. Once again, we can use the sample worker class. After that, we need to pass the interval between the two works. For example, if you want to enqueue your work every week, you can say 7. And after that, you need to pass a time unit. In this case, I can say time units.days. And after that, you can set the input data like you have did for the one-time work request. You can say set input data, you can pass your data. If you want, you can have some constraints. Let's say set constraints, and let's pass our constraint. Like before, you can have tags. Let's say add tag. Let's say periodic in this case. If you want, you can have the initial delay as well. Set initial delay. Let's pass 10 hour in this case. Time unit.hours. After everything, you can build your object. Because we cannot wait 10 hours for this work to be enqueued, I'm going to comment this line. Beside that, I'm going to comment this set constraint method. Or alternatively, I can remove this set requires charging method from the definition of my constraints. Let's comment that. Once again, you need to enqueue your work. You can say work manager dot get instance. You need to pass your context, which I'm going to pass this. After that, you can say .enqueue. You can pass your periodic work request. As simple as that. Let's run the application once again, and let's open the logcat. As you can see, the do work method is happening perfectly. You can also check the status of your work as well. For example, inside this onCreate method, down in here, I can say work manager dot get instance. Once again, let's pass the context. Let's say dot, and in here you can say get work info by tag, or the better option is to get work info by tag live data. This method is going to return a live data in which you can observe for the changes in the status of your work. Let's quickly see that in action. If you remember, we have used this tag for periodic work and also this download tag for one-time work requests. We need to pass one of these tags in here. For example, let's pass download. And after that, as I said, this get work info by tag live data is going to return a live data object. And now I can observe the changes on this live data. I can say .observe. For this observe method, I need to pass two things. First of all, I need to pass a lifecycle owner. The lifecycle owner can be something like an activity or maybe a fragment, or even it can be a service, whatever that has a life cycle. In this case, I'm going to pass this because we are inside an activity. After that, we need to pass an observer. I'm going to do that in the next line. Let's say new observer, and let's import the first interface. Inside this unchanged method, we are getting a list of work infos. Because different works can have one tag, so we are getting a list of work infos. Now we can use this work info object to get the status of our work. For that, I'm going to create a for each loop. Let's say for work info, let's name it W. Inside our work infos list, let's log something. Let's say work status plus w dot get state. We also need to add this tag above in our main activity. Let's say log t and press tab. Okay, let's run our application, but before that, let's quickly uncomment this line and comment this line so that we enqueue our one-time work request, which has the tag download. Okay, let's run the application and let's open the logcat. As you can see in here, we are getting the work status, but there are multiple versions of our work status. I'm not sure about the reason of this, but I'm guessing that there are multiple works with this exact ID. The better option is to use work IDs instead of work tags. Let's quickly see that as well. But before that, let's quickly take a look at these work status. It seems like we have succeeded in our work, and also we have enqueued it multiple times. We have succeeded enqueued until we are inside the running stage. Then we have run the work. After that, we have succeeded enqueued, and after everything, we have succeeded. I don't know the reason for all of these work status, but I'm just guessing that there might be multiple versions of this one-time work request with this download tag. As I said, the better option is to use work IDs instead of these tags. Okay, let's comment all of these from here to the definition of our work manager. And after everything, let's say work manager dot get instance. Let's pass this. Let's say dot get work info by ID live data. I think we have something like that. Work info by ID live data. Yes. In here, we need to pass the ID of our work, in which I can pass download request dot get ID. Once again, this method is going to return a live data, and I can apply or subscribe an observer on that. Let's say observe. First of all, we need to pass a lifecycle owner, which once again I'm going to pass this. After that, we need to pass a new observer, which I'm going to say new observer. As you can see, this time we have only one work info. Let's log something in here. Let's say work status plus work info dot get state. Okay, our application is ready to test. Just before I do that, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to upload new videos every day. Also, please hit that like button if you like the video. It's going to help me a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Okay, let's run the application and let's open the logcat as well. As you can see inside the logcat, the work has been enqueued. The work is in the running state. And after the work is finished, we can see succeeded message. It seems to be perfect. There is just one last thing that I'm going to talk about in this video, and that's when you want to cancel your works. Let's see that as well. If you want to cancel your work, once again, you have two options. You can do that by using the ID or the work ID to be precise, and also you can use the tags. You can say work manager.get instance. Let's pass the context. Let's say cancel. You can see the options in here. You can cancel all of your works. You can cancel all of the works by tags. You can also cancel the works by their IDs. Let's cancel a work by its ID. And for the ID, I'm going to pass download request dot get ID. Let's run the application once again and let's open the logcat. As you can see, the work status is cancelled. It seems to be perfect. Before we finish off this video, let's also talk about the concept of chaining different works together. So imagine that you have multiple works that are dependent to each other. For example, imagine that you have a photo editor application in which you need to apply multiple filters on different images. All of those image filters are somehow dependent to each other and they need to be applied one at a time. In situations like that, Work Manager can be useful as well. Let's see how we can chain different works together. For example, down in here, I can say Work Manager dot get instance this, let's say dot. In order to chain different works together, instead of enqueuing different works, you need to say begin with. To this begin with method, you need to pass at least one-time work request. You can also pass a list of one-time work requests, but if you pass one, that's going to work fine as well. For example, in this case, I'm going to pass my download request. This is going to be the initial request of this chain. After that, you can say .then. Once again, to this then method, you can pass one-time work request, or you can pass a list of one-time work requests. Depending on your need, both of them are going to work fine. In this application, I have only one-time work request, and that's my download request, and I'm going to pass that in here. But if you have multiple requests, you can pass them one at a time. For example, let's pass that download request in here. You can pass as many then in here as you want. For each one of these then methods, you can pass one-time work requests. Let's pass another one. And after you are done with this chaining, you can simply say .enqueue. As simple as that. Now you have a chain of different works. They are going to happen one after another in the exact order that you provide in here. So for example, if your application is going to log some data about the user's behavior in the local database, and after that upload those logs to a web server maybe, you can chain those works like this. First of all, you need to create a work request in order to add these logs to the local database. After that, you may need to create an upload request in order to upload those logs to the web server. Even after that, when you're sure that your server has received all of those logs, you may want to delete the logs from the local database. So you can change those requests one at a time in here. Also, it's worth mentioning that you can only chain one-time work requests. You cannot chain different periodic work requests like this in here. There is one important point in here that I need to mention. So when we have created our work requests, we have passed some input data to our one-time work request. Beside input data, every request can have some output data as well. Let's switch to our sample worker class. So in here we are receiving the input data, but our work can have some output data as well. For passing output data, you can do something like this. You can create a data object. For example, I can say data, let's name it output data, is equal to new data.builder, this one. And after that, I can put my data, for example, like before, I can say put int, let's say number, for the value, let's say 15 this time. After everything, let's just say build. After you have created your output data, you can pass it to this success method. And the way you do that is like this. You can simply pass it to the success method. Let's say output data. In chaining different works together, this output data is very important because this output data is going to be the input data for the next request. Let me say that once again. The parent's output data is going to be the child's input data. So now that we have chained different one-time work requests like this down in here, when the first download request happens, when we call the second download request, its input data is going to be equal to the output data that we have saved in here. If you want, you can use your input data once again and you can simply pass it in here, but if you need to change the data, you can create your own data object. Okay, I think that's enough for this video. That was our talk about Work Manager. Work Manager has been released on a stable channel in March 2019, and it's a relatively modern solution for handling background tasks. In this video, we have seen that Work Manager has all of the powers of Job Scheduler plus a lot more, and also it's backward compatible up to API level 14. So it's a very great option for handling background tasks. Okay, just before I finish off this video, I'm going to say that I have 60 more hours of videos like this in the format of a course on my website. No matter on what stage of learning Android app development you are, it's going to help you a lot. So make sure to check that. Beside Android app development, I have a lot more courses on my website like Java, Python, ethical hacking, and a lot more. All of those courses has been created in high quality and you are going to benefit them a lot. So make sure to check them if you need. And also please hit that like button if you like this video. It's going to help me a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Also make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already so that you don't miss any new videos. I'm uploading new videos on a daily basis. And as always, I'm going to upload the source code at my website at MeiCode.org. If you need to take a look at the source code, make sure to check the description down below this video. Okay, thank you for watching and see you in the next video.